Hello everyone, welcome back to the Flying Sandals channel. It's a pleasure to see you here again. Thank you for joining me for another video. So we're going to continue the build series on the Anaconda. Last time we talked about power considerations. We did it from a standpoint where we look at the diagram, we talked about the important things to consider, but I want to show you what it looks like in real life when you actually go to wire things. And we talked about a wire splitter, so we're going to look at that. We're going to look at how things are going to get mounted in the plane, both to keep things organized as much as possible. That way, whenever we come back and have to do any maintenance on the plane, it's a little bit easier. And we do a little bit of wire management so as not to end up with a big rat's nest of wires once we build the plane. It's easy to do that since there's so many wires and so many different power and connections that we're going to be managing. So we had talked about how to provide power through a PDB to both the telemetry radio and to the air unit, which is going to be doing our video transmission. Those are a little bit more power hungry. So I'm going to show you how that actually looks once we actually put it together in real life, and how we're going to do the power split for the motors. So let's go to the bench, let's have a look, and hopefully this video will be useful and will give you some ideas. Okay, so I decided that I'm going to show you the actual way that I'm going to wire all this power setup. So the first thing we want to do, and again, this is based on our diagram, which I showed you the better version on the computer, but basically from the battery, we're going to supply the power module to the cube. We're going to have the PDB with the second UBEC also powering the cube. And from there, we're going to supply power to the DJI air unit and to the telemetry radio. I'm also going to be using a small power monitor to monitor the voltage so that I can quickly see it from the screen. And we're going to make sure that we have a way to send power to the ESC. The rest I'm not going to do during this part of the video, but I'm just going to show you how everything is going to go. Okay? So here's the power module. Now this is going to be working, I just have a sample battery, but obviously this is going to be a much larger battery and connected in parallel, and it's going to give me an XT60 connection here. And so basically that would go here. I'm not going to power it just now. Okay? Now, the next thing we need to do is we need to split power. We need to split power up to the ESC, and we want to feed the PDB. So the way that I'm going to do that is that I have this PDB here. PDB stands for Power Distribution Board, by the way. And I basically put an XT60 connection onto it, soldered here. So I figured I wasn't going to make you watch me soldering wires, but before I closed everything, I wanted to make sure and show you how I did it. Okay, so here's the basically a tap that I made, and this is going to allow me to connect the PDB onto this. So this is the way that is going to be installed in the actual plane. The batteries are going to come from the front of the plane. It'll connect there, and this will then allow connecting the ESC onto this. To the ESC, this is going to look like a battery. Okay, and so what I did is I made this little power tap, which I put some wire, some nice thick wire here. Let me bring this back where the camera will see it. So basically just put some wire, put a good bit of solder. You want to have a good thick connection. This is still going to be powering the entire system, and especially the motor with it. And then this tap is going to be powering this PDB. So now I have an easy way to connect that onto the to the PDB, and the battery is going to come and connect here, and power that. Now, this power module, like I mentioned before, is what lets me power the cube. So that's going to be connection number 1. And actually, as we're doing this, let me just go ahead and finish some of these things. So this has the XT60, I'm sorry, the XT30. This is an XT30 connector soldered onto that. And I just need to heat shrink these two little connectors. So there'll be a little bit of noise. I'm going to use this heat gun to just shrink this real quick. Let me get some hot air. There we go. And now I also have some heat shrink prepared for this little adapter for the tap that I made here. So this is gonna go again into that other part of the XT30 connection. So let's shrink that. And as I'm heat shrinking this, I'm just kind of making sure that it heat shrinks and it goes as close as possible to the connector so that it covers as much as possible there. Okay. Now, to protect this connection, I also have some more heat shrink here. So let's go ahead and get that. And this will connect like so. So I want to be just before that, the place where those two join. There we go, like that. So let's shrink that. Excellent. So there we go. Now we have a good power connection with a tap. Okay, so let's put it together now. This comes from the battery, goes through the power sensor, plugs into here, and now this tap provides power for the PDB. Okay, one more thing I need to do is I need to put a connector onto these DuPont connectors. So I have it ready over here somewhere. There we go. So this is a 2-pin connector. That's all that we need. So I'm gonna put, actually, you know what? Let me see. I think I have a 3 somewhere. And there's a reason. There's a reason why I want the 3 instead of the 2. So the 3 is gonna make it so that the power is always in the middle, and that way it's a lot harder to connect the power wrong. That way, power goes in the middle. And I'm gonna connect it like so. So I'm going to put ground on the bottom part of that connector. There we go. So that's well connected there. And the reason I want that is that way, if I plug it this way, or if by chance I make a mistake and plug it in the other way, the only thing that's gonna happen is that ground's gonna get connected in the wrong place, but the power is going to be in the correct place. So that's why I'm using the 3, even though I'm only using 2 connections there. Perfect. So that is going to let me connect this thing here. So let me go ahead and actually put the other standoffs onto this board. So there's one. There's a second, and I have 2 more over here. Now these standoffs into the PLA are actually a good tight fit, so that shouldn't be coming loose anytime soon. There we go. So now I have these standoffs firmly installed there. And let me get some of the screws that I'm going to need and that plate I mentioned before. So now the way that this is going to be installed is like this. So I want this installed like so. And so my hand's going to be in the way here a little bit. Let's see, maybe if I come over here. There we go. That's 2. 3. And the last one. All right. So here's what we have, right? So now we have the PDB in the bottom, and we have this additional power supply for the telemetry radio, and this is ready to tap into that. So let's do that. Let's install. Let me see. Let's install the telemetry radio on here. So what I did is I put some standoffs here. I prepared these short standoffs. Just go right on there. And this has a 3mm, an M3 6mm screw with a 2mm hex head. So let's see if I can get this started. There we go. And just get the other two screws started. And there we go. Okay. All right, so now this is going to go into the external power pins, which are these. Again, ground at the bottom, power in the middle. So that's going to power the telemetry radio. Then this powers the entire PDB. My battery would come from here. This connects to the telemetry one on the cube. There we go. This is the first power supply for the cube, so I'm just going to put it into either one. It doesn't really matter, so I'll put it on the left side. There we go. And here's my secondary power supply. So this one is powered from the from battery power, and this is going to be my secondary power supply. So there we go. So I think that's about how I'm going to install it in the Anaconda. These antennas are not going to stay here. I'm going to get some antenna extensions and put them on the outside body of the Anaconda. I'm probably going to also put some more standoffs here at the bottom so that I can actually sync them and get everything firmly attached into the phone. But here we go. So that's how I'm going to be setting this up. So that's our redundant power. All of my servo connections are going to come in here from the side. That is where all of my pins are. And the GPS, which I have here, this one is going to plug into the GPS port, which is the CAN 2 port in this flight controller. So that's how the GPS is going to go. Now, I was actually starting to test fit things into the plane, and I noticed that I'm not going to have enough GPS cable. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use an I2C splitter. And this splitter allows me to, I can use it with an I2C, but I can also use it with a CAN bus port, because these are just all connected in parallel. It's just a splitter. Everything gets the same signal. So this one is actually meant to be an I2C connector, and the only difference is that if you were using something like a CAN bus servo, then you don't have an extra means of putting power. The ones that are for CAN bus have 2 additional pads where you can plug in additional power for it. We don't need that with this particular one because the GPS is the only thing that we're connecting onto that CAN bus, and we don't need additional power for it. So that is going to make it so that now I can plug this into the CAN bus splitter, and that's going to give me way much cable. Now I can get all the way to the front of the Anaconda where I want to install the GPS unit. Okay, so that's going to go all the way to the front. And by the way, if you notice, my GPS is now mounted onto this little stand. And this is how I'm going to install it onto the top of the Anaconda. So I made this little plate, which is basically, I just took my my model that I downloaded from the Proficiency Wiki website for the Cube ecosystem. And I just sliced 3 millimeters off the bottom, and I printed that. So this is going to be like a hard plate that I'm going to glue onto the plane, and that way I can use screws to attach it from the top here. I'm going to put screws here, and then that way it's going to get attached and mounted and raised just a little bit off the plane. Okay, so I like that because it's got this kind of aerodynamic shape. It looks like a little bit of a wing profile. Anyway, so with that splitter, now I'm going to be able to get all the way where I want. So this is what my electronic setup is starting to look like. I'm not exactly sure that I'm happy with the all these wires. I'm going to have to find a way to clean them up. Maybe, I mean, I don't want to necessarily enclose them in a way that they wouldn't get enough air or ventilation, but maybe just find a way to kind of keep all my wires together like so. Anyway, I'll figure something out. But this is where all my power requirements are going to be met by the way we talked about them in the design. So that's as we designed it, and that's going to be getting installed into the vehicle in the near future. Okay, all right. I'm going to show you how I'm going to get this mounted to the bottom of the Anaconda fuselage. I basically have this plate that is going to be holding the flight controller shock mount from the bottom of the plane. The foam of the Anaconda would be here in the middle. And what I want to do is I want to make sure and get these things installed to the bottom. Now, I could try to drill this out and make it so that they come through loosely and then put a nut here at the bottom. I'm deciding against that, and instead what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut some threads into it with an M3 screw onto this little plate. Okay, so just onto this plate. Sorry, plate or plaque. I said plate. Okay, here we go. Anyway, so I'm just using this electric screwdriver, which is great, by the way. This is an extremely useful tool. And all I'm doing is I am just driving the M3 screw in and out of this plate a few times into each one of the holes. Okay, I think I got them. All right. And so what I'm going to do now is these screws here at the bottom, I'm going to remove those. There we go. So just remove the standoffs. And now, if everything works according to plan, I should be able to just thread them in. Let's see. There we go. And now what I'm going to do is I am going to put this from the bottom of the Anaconda and then tighten this from the top. Okay, very well. Now I'm going to install this into the fuselage. And I'm a little bit far from the microphone. You may have a little bit of a hard time hearing what I say, but let me just quickly show you. Here's our plate. I'm going to push it in from the bottom. There we go. To where I can see that the stand-ups are just below the surface, but I think I can still get to them with these screws. So let's see if I can tighten them like that. Okay, so let's see. For the last one over here. there we go. Woohoo! So that should be pretty firm in there now. Let's see. Oh yeah, that's firm. From the bottom, all I have is this little plaque with a little bolts at the bottom. So there we go. That makes for a nice, firmly mounted. Oh yeah. You can move that thing around. That's firm in there. Okay. There we go. So that's exactly where the cube is going to be installed. The cube is going to be in there like so. Yep. I think that's going to be pretty good. That should work nicely. Okay, there we go. Well, there you go. Now you have a better idea of how I set everything up. So let me just show you what this looks like a little bit further back. Once, you know, I showed you in the last video that I had mounted this platform for the flight controller. So that's what it looks like. On the back, it's just got this plate holding it in place. So that'll be ready once I get ready to actually mount the flight controller permanently inside the plane. So for now, I haven't installed all those pieces, but they are ready for when we actually put things into place. I want to show you one thing that I've done, and that is prepare where I'm going to be installing the GPS unit. So there's going to be this little plate that I'm going to use to install there. So I modified the design a little bit from what I was showing in the video earlier, mostly because I want to make sure that there is something more to grab and to give hold and support for the GPS unit. So these little pegs that I put on the plate are going to go in here, and that way when I glue it, there's going to be something to actually hold on to the plane. So I'll show you that in a future video. The other thing that I'm going to do before I actually go ahead and commit to putting the flight controller and building it, you know, all inside and install the electronics, is that I have another video. I took it out for another flight just to make sure that things were flying as they're supposed to, that the airframe is still good and airworthy, tested my landing gear, and I have that video coming up next. So please subscribe so you get that video and you see it. I just wanted to have another flight with it just as an RC airplane before I put the flight controller in it. So hopefully you're subscribed. If not, go ahead and subscribe. I'll show you what this looks like again when it's flying. And I got some really cool video to show you. So stay tuned for that video. In the meantime, I hope you enjoyed this one where we actually did the wiring for all the power setup. And things are coming along for our Anaconda build. So I hope you're enjoying this. Please like, subscribe. Don't miss any of my videos. You're going to like the way we fly. All right, take care. And don't forget to keep them up in the air.